Hello there, welcome to the next in the series of videos on the retail price comparison, and this one concerns a description of the tabs and an overview of the content. So you've taken part, you've got hold of your report, and you suddenly find you've got this spreadsheet full of information. This video is all about helping you understand the broad content of what you've got, and in the next video we'll be looking at how to use it. Okay, when you first open your report you see this. You're on the guidance notes tab, and indeed everything I go through today is explained in those guidance notes. There's nothing particularly new, but I will be explaining it to you and taking you through it, so that should help your understanding that bit more. But equally, when you get back and look at the guidance notes yourself, you should recognise a lot of the text that's there because we'll have gone through it in this video. So let's look at the summary tab, and here's what you see: an overall high-level view of how your business is performing when compared to your peers, other indies, and when compared to the big chains. It's divided into a few areas. At the top there's a summary. Here there's a section called My Price Comparisons. Here there's a section where my prices sit compared to all respondents, that's with all independents. And the last bit here is My Sales Satisfaction, which again is comparing you with your peers, other independent retailers. The top part here is driven by some macros that look at the data and produce the statements that are made. I won't read out that statement now, but that helps you understand how it's been driven and how it's been put together. And what I want to focus on now is this first line here, which is a basket comparison. Okay, it takes the number of products where you have provided responses, and in this example the customer has responded with 54 lines out of the 65 that are in the survey. And it compares the total basket price of those two. So there's a me and there's a them, and there's the numbers that go in there. And then there's a percentage, me versus them. Plus percent means that I'm slightly more expensive, a negative means I am less expensive. And the example, you can see it's plus 1%, which is neither here nor there. But that's what that's all about. Similarly, this section goes on to do the same when compared to the major chains. So you can see PC World, Argos, Tesco and Asda are all listed, and again there's a me versus them, and you can see the basket detail here and the number of lines where the comparison was possible. Interestingly, just to point out, the Tesco numbers are always of interest to people. Tesco operates a bit like a marketplace in this respect. It's a bit like an Amazon or an eBay for that matter. It's not actually retailing those items directly. Other retailers, other online sellers are coming on and using the Tesco brand, just like they would do Amazon or eBay, and selling under that brand. So it makes for particularly aggressive price comparisons. But as you can see with this customer, he's winning, or she's winning for that matter. So what your basket comparison means, excuse me, your basket comparison means that you are more or less expensive on average. So for example, if your basket is 10% less than, say, PC World, for the sake of argument, you are, on average, 10% cheaper than PC World. And that would be a marketing message that it would be perfectly legitimate for you to use in any of your marketing collateral or on your website or leaflets, flyers, or when you're talking to people for that matter. And just a point on close price competition, so just to get a feel for what this is, you should expect real price competition is within about plus or minus 10%. If it's much greater or much less, then it's really competition's moved beyond price. If you think about it, if another business is able to sell, for the sake of argument, 10, 15, 20, 25% more sustainably than you are able to, then they must be doing something differently to you, because the customers that are walking in there are still making a value judgment about what they're getting for their money. But there's something about the way they're going about what they're doing that says to that customer, yeah, this price is justified. And that's why I say it moves beyond it's moved beyond price competition. The same thing exists if another business is selling 15, 20, 25% cheaper than you. There must be something about the way that business is operating that gives its customers the confidence that, yeah, they're getting what that money's buying. Maybe it's a specific no-frills service. It could be all sorts of things. Close price competition, genuine price competition is tighter. It's within that sort of plus or minus 10% arena, and that's really where you should look. I'm going to go on and use win ratio to talk about the data that you've got, and I just want to spend a bit of time talking about what it is and what it isn't as well. Win does not mean good and lose doesn't mean bad. Okay, it's a statistical technique used for looking at data. We've used it in the context of win meaning a price is lower and lose meaning a price is higher. And we're particularly keen on making sure that you understand in everything we're doing around helping you set prices, this isn't about reducing prices. In actual fact, it's quite the opposite. We're looking for opportunities where you can justifiably raise your prices. So what does win ratio mean in terms of this summary tab, which is where we were? Well, if you look here over to the right hand side, there's a win ratio here. And in this instance, this customer is winning 59% of the time. Yeah? And what that means is 59% of the products where this customer had responded, which was 54 lines, so 59% of 54 lines are better priced than the peers. So what win ratio means, it basically means you're more or less expensive more often. It doesn't say by how much, just more often or not. And just like with price, win ratio can indicate or help you understand the nature of genuine price competition. Let's take an example. If you are winning more than 65% of the time, that means your prices are better more than 65% of the time compared to a competitor, which means that they must be selling more expensively than you, and they're doing it in a sustainable way, which means they must be doing something that means their customers are happy to pay those prices whilst your customers are happy to pay yours. The same exists if you are winning less than 35% of the time. In other words, you're losing the majority of the time, or the competitors that you are considering are significantly cheaper than you. Again, you have to take account of the fact that the customers that are buying from that business must be happy with the fact that those prices are so low. There must be something about that way their business operates. The no frills example I gave before. So just like with price itself, win ratio can help you understand the nature of price competition and the competitors that you're up against. But when you put the two things together, you get a full picture of your price competition position. Yeah? If your basket's 10% less than PC World's and your win ratio is 60%, you can justifiably say, on average my prices are 10% lower than PC World's, and where there are price differences, because win ratio doesn't look at where things are the same, it's only interested in differences, and where there are price differences, I am less expensive on 60% of the products. So the reason why it's important is those two things come together, because your basket, remember, comprises items of values of high value and low value. And a basket comparison can be skewed by the value amount rather than the number of times that you're actually better priced. So that's why the two things are important together. So moving on, just to talk a little bit about quartiles, because quartiles get used in the spreadsheet and as part of the analysis of data that gets presented back to you. We've done this in order to be able to break out customers, and it's really on the basic premise that, broadly speaking, in the absence of satisfaction data, and I stress in the absence of satisfaction data, high-priced items run you reputational risk because you might be seen as a rip-off, too expensive. Don't go there, they cost a fortune. By the same token, a Q1 price at the bottom end might be regarded as too cheap. Yeah? There must be something wrong with it. They sell that stuff so cheap, there's something wrong with it. And the way we work with that, with the data, is we take, for every product, we rank all the responses from the highest to the lowest. And the top 25% we cream off and put into that high price bracket, that Q4 bracket, and the lowest 25% we cream off and we put into the Q1 bracket. You can guess how we do Qs 2 and 3. So what does all that mean? Well, in terms of your spreadsheet, you can see this part, where my price sits compared with all other respondents. And it's got the lowest price quartile, the Q1, the lower middle, Q2, right through to the highest price quartile, Q4. And it gives a breakout of the number of lines that fall into each of those quartiles. So of the 54 lines, 12 were in Q1, 15 were in Q2, 15 were in Q2, and 12 were in Q3 for this customer. So it tells them how their prices are spread over the quartiles. It gives that as a percentage, and then there's just a simple ranking to work out where the most are and how they fall. What's interesting in this is that that spread is really quite flat, which would suggest that there's probably more than there should be in the upper and lower quartiles, and there's probably opportunities for price adjustment for this customer. We don't yet know what, because we haven't looked at the detail, but at the summary level, that's what it's telling us. And the last part of the summary tab concerns my sales satisfaction. There's 3 lines here. My overall sales satisfaction for the 54 lines completed, average participant satisfaction for all product lines, and average participant satisfaction for the 54 lines that I completed, so a direct comparison. Remembering that 1 was very poor and 5 was very good, I've got an average satisfaction of 3.2, and 3 is a perfectly respectable level of satisfaction, so that's good, that's great. Average participation satisfaction across all 65 product lines is about 3.21. So no difference really compared to me at 3.2. But interestingly, when I look at average participation satisfaction across the same 54 lines, I've got a satisfaction of 3.34. So broadly speaking, they are more satisfied with their product pricing than I am. Interesting. I need to look in more detail. So let's do that, and let's see what are in the other tabs. So this is the All Data tab. And what do you get? Well, not surprisingly, you get all the data. And as you can see, item number 3 here, there's no information provided from this particular customer. And that's absolutely fine. But it's there for the sake of completeness, and it gives you all the raw information should you want to look at it in any particular way. Just to dwell on some of the columns here, the first column here is the number of responses. So we've actually got the number of customers who provided price and satisfaction detail for that product, and working on the basis that is around about 100 people took part. These are approximately percentages, near or thereabouts. So you can see 73% of people responded with a price. 87, 79, there's one down here at 18. Now why this matters is just sheerly to do with the reliability of the information that you're getting, and clearly the more people that have responded, the more reliable the data, the greater spread of information you've got, and the more confidence you can have in the data. That doesn't mean the data with low numbers should be completely discarded. It just means if you decide to use it, you should probably do a little bit more research yourself to understand it and make sure it's robust. We've also got the average price, which is the arithmetic mean. So it's the sum of all the prices divided by the number of people who provided them. It's the average, as you'd expect it to be. We provide some other information as well that's related to things that are similar. The mode is a price that you may be interested in using, which is the most frequent or popular price for the product. Okay, it does not mean the majority of people charge this price, it just happens to mean it's the most popular price. Now, to take an extreme example of how this might work and what the mode means, imagine 100 people responded with their pricing on a particular product. And let's say, for the sake of argument, respondent 1 said it was £1, respondent 2 said it was £2, respondent 3 said it was £3, right up to respondent 99, who said it was £99. The 100th respondent charges £1. The mode is £1. Yeah, it's the most popular price. Now, in reality, of course, prices tend to be spread around an average, and that spread can move, be a little bit skewed either way. And really, the difference between the mode and the average can help us understand how the data is positioned around the norm, around the average. But nevertheless, it does give you that most popular price, and that may be a price that you want to work to when you're price setting. Okay, a bit more about quartiles and price data. I've already mentioned the 4 quartiles. If you recall, the quartile 4 was the 25% of participants with the highest prices. Quartile 1 was the 25% of participants with the lowest prices. And quartiles 2 and 3 are really the 50% of with pricing in the middle. And remembering the fact that we were working on quartile 4 possibly representing where prices are starting to get a bit expensive, a bit rip-off, okay, in the absence of sales satisfaction information, but nevertheless it's on the expensive side, and quarter 1 being a little bit on the too cheap side. The way we use this information is to break it into 3 blocks. We put quartiles 2 and 3 together as one area, and we keep quartile 4 and quartile 1 as separate areas. And that gives us some really important price points that we use and that are given in the sheet. We've got the quartile 4 lower price, which you'll see as a column heading shortly, which is the start point at which prices could be becoming a bit expensive. We've also got the quartile 1 upper price, which is the point at which prices could be seen to be becoming a little too cheap. And we've also got the median price, yeah, which is bang in the middle. And the median is important because it works on the number of times a price is either above or below that point. And is essentially the middle price. In other words, if 100 customers had taken part, 50 of them would have prices above the median and 50 of them would have prices below the median. It's a really important price, and the one that we suggest you use when thinking broadly about your pricing. So how does that shake through? Now, at the top of the report, you'll see a number of these little plus signs. If you click on those plus signs, there are some hidden columns. And there's one just above column E in your report. And if you click on that, lo and behold, you see median, quartile 1 upper and quartile 4 lower prices. So that information is all stored in there and it's hidden. As I've said to you before, the median is the middle price. Yeah? So there's an equal number of people with a price that's higher than it and an equal number of people with a price that's lower than it. It's a really important price. There's the quartile 1 upper price, which is the price at the top of quartile 1. In other words, it's the price at which, if you go any lower, you're getting into, it's getting a bit cheap. There could be a reputational problem here. That's in the absence of satisfaction data, it has to be said, but nevertheless, that's what it represents. There's the quartile 4 price, which is the complete opposite. It's where the price is becoming a little bit too high. Yeah? Prices above that might be seen as, it's getting a bit rip-off here, I'm not quite happy, it's a bit expensive. And clearly, my price, yeah, which is the very price that you submitted. We've also included, just for the sake of helping you with the survey, my price quartile. So we've actually slotted it for you. Moving on, there's some other information that we've done. We've got my price versus the average, and that literally is the calculation of your price, which in this instance is £95, against the average, which is £88.95. What it's saying is it's 6.8% above the average. And then there's some percentages worked out compared to the big chains. So everything that's gone before is related to comparison with your peers. This section relates to the comparison with the big chains. And again, what you'll see is a load of percentages that relate to whether you're better priced or worse priced than they are. And again, above column P, there's a little plus sign that if you click, you'll see the detailed prices from each of those big chains. Next, if you click above column T, you'll get to see the detail of the sales satisfaction. So this is moving back into information that relates to your peers. And this is the key stuff that helps you understand how to set your prices according to what's performing best for other people. The prices alone are not enough to help you do that. You need the sales satisfaction data as well. And if you click on column T, the plus sign there, you'll get to see some really good data. Now, what's all over this side? Well, first of all, there's an overall average satisfaction rating. Remembering that 3 is a perfectly respectable satisfaction. You can see, for the sake of argument, this first one is at 3.1. So, you know, this is a good product. We've then got the average satisfaction for those participants that had prices in the Q4 range for that product. So how satisfied are they? We've got the grouping of quartiles 2 and 3 together. Remember, we were talking about quartiles 2 and 3 being the kind of the safe area, quartile 4 being a bit expensive and quartile 1 being a little cheap. Yeah? So we've got the quartile 2 and 3 average satisfaction and the quartile 1 average satisfaction. So what you can see, depending on price, is how satisfaction varies. And that's the really important part, because then if your pricing looks like it needs to be changed, you can immediately think, well, which price quartile gives most satisfaction to my peers? And therefore, what kind of target price should I consider aiming at? Remember, it's only consider. All we're doing here is presenting you with a means to think about your pricing, not a dictate on what you should do, and that will obviously help you. A couple of other bits that are of use. The last part here is my rating, which is for satisfaction that you gave, and then interestingly there's a relative satisfaction, and there's a description there of how it works. Put simply, all that relative satisfaction does is it takes account of whether people are glass half full or glass half empty kinds of people. Are you the kind of person that tends to rate everything bad, that tends to rate everything good, or are you somewhere in the middle? And that percentage there is really a guide as to the real difference between your satisfaction and the average for the product in question. Yeah? So think about relative satisfaction when you're thinking about satisfaction of satisfaction against your peers, because it will give you a better indication about where you're really sitting. Okay, the next tab to look at is the Do Stock tab, which, as you might guess, is a subset of the All Data tab, just for the products that you supplied price and satisfaction data on. Hey presto, isn't that clever? Well, there is a bit more to this tab than just that, because the My Price versus Average Price has been sorted, and it's been sorted in ascending order, starting with the prices that are the lowest compared to the average, right through to the prices that are the highest compared to the average at the bottom. So it's already starting to give you an idea of where to look. And you can see here, this first product for this customer is minus 61% below the average price. That's starting to focus minds and think, right, maybe this should be a candidate for reviewing price. And as you can see, all the way up to -9, -6, and then we start to get into the positives. And that will go right through to the most expensive product compared to the average as well. The Don't Stock tab, really interesting tab. This is where you can look at products you haven't responded to, but others have, and you can look at some of the information that they've provided on that. And what's particularly interesting here is that you can gauge the popularity in terms of the number of responses where other people have responded to that product, and you've also got the average rating as well. And those two bits of information give you some real insight into potential new products for you to take on and stock, giving you the opportunity to increase your range and make more money. The Price Change tool is the last tab in your report, and we included it to help you think about pricing. When I talk about pricing with people and we talk about the whole issue of kind of discount or price increases, what I find is people generally have a somewhat distorted view on either the level of business that a discount might generate, or indeed the amount of business that can be lost before a price rise becomes a bad decision. In other words, you don't break even. And what we've got in the spreadsheet is, in your detailed report, is a macro, some formulas that help you understand that. This can't help replace whether or not you believe the information is right, but what it can do is just help you put some rationality around your thinking to do with price changes. It works on the issue of, it works on markup, because that's what I see most people use. I know some people may use gross margin. Be assured that this works by using markup, so you'll need to convert to markup. In other words, the percentage that you apply to a cost price to deliver you your selling price. We do work out what the margin is, so if you're not sure about how to do that, you can always play with the numbers and adjust the markup until you get the margin that you want. And then your price change needs to go in. And there's a really important point to note here. The sign of the price change is very important, because the equations are not linear and are not the same either side of the 0 point. Yeah, so make sure the sign is right, otherwise you'll get answers that aren't correct. So let's just think a little bit about the impact of price changes, just to illustrate this point and to help you understand it some more. We think about a scenario, yeah? We've got something that you bought for £10 and you sell at £13. Doesn't matter what it is, it could be this little thing I'm using for advancing my slides. Let's say you buy it at 10 and sell it at 13. So that's a markup of 30% gross margin of 23. Two scenarios. One, you consider increasing its price to £14. The other, you consider decreasing its price to 12. The question to you is to retain the original amount of profit that you were making. How much more do you need to sell to recoup the £1 discount? If you think about it, if you lower the price, instantly you're giving money away. Now, if the same number of customers continue to walk through the door, you're going to sell the same number of them, and you're going to lose £1 on every sale. But if you could increase the number of customers coming through the door, because you've reduce the price by £1. You could make that money back. The issue is what percentage increase in sales do you need to do that? Think about that one. The other one is, if I was to raise my price to £14, then I'm going to get some people who may say, price has gone up, that's a bit expensive. No, that's too much for me, I'll buy somewhere else. So the issue then becomes, okay, for every one that you're selling, you're making incrementally more profit than you would have done before. How many sales can you lose before you wipe out that extra pound that you're making on every item? You might like to stop the video and have a little think about that, or alternatively, you can come with me to the next page. Okay, what we've got here is the price change tool equations plotted on a graph. And you can see there's a number of different lines depending on the different markups that are applied. The yellow line is at 20% markup, which I know some people are applying because I've spoken to them and they've told me. We've got 30 and 40% markups, which I know is more in line with what many of you are applying. And we've also got 50 and 60% markups, which I also know many of you are applying as well. Standard retail margin is normally more like 100%. And I appreciate there's a lot that goes into local competition and so on, but certainly markups of 20% are very, very low. But to return to the point, we can use this to think about discounts and price rises and the consequential impact on business before the break-even point is gone through. And that's really how this works. So the first one, I've lowered my price by £1, which is the equivalent of a 7% discount. Yeah? I discount 7% and I was originally making a 30% markup. I'm going to need to sell 44% more units to make up for the £1 that I'm now giving away because I am selling this that little bit cheaper. That's nearly half as much again. Half as much again. Now, if you're not doing anything to market and promote the fact that you're discounting your product, the same number of customers are going to come through the door. So the instant your price is lowered, you're already losing money. The issue is do you honestly believe you could drum up another 50%, 44%, another half as much again business through your marketing? It's a tall order, isn't it? Only you can actually answer that question. I'm not trying to suggest that people can or people can't, but it's still a tall order, and that's why we've included the price change tool to help you understand the consequences of making decisions. If you were to raise the price by 7%, some of your customers are going to balk at the price. The issue is, do you honestly believe 23%, that's nearly a quarter of your business, is going to say, no thank you, no thank you? Because again, that's an enormously high proportion. Certainly some may, but is it going to be as much as that? Because if it isn't, then raising the price by £1 is still good business. So that's why we've included the price change tool to help you understand these things. We've gone through all the tabs in the report. I've described to you all the data there, all the different data that's in the different tabs. The key things to remember are how the quartiles work, how the quartiles are set up and how the quartiles work, and how satisfaction works as well, and how that's been spread out, that's been broken out by the different price quartiles. Because at the end of the day, what you want to do is consider your price compared to the price that's giving your peers maximum satisfaction. And that's the way to start thinking about your price. And in the next video, we'll cover that off in a lot more detail. If you're interested in making contact with me about anything that you've seen, please drop me an email, john.coulter@targetcomponents.co.uk. You can reach me through any of those social media accounts, and indeed, if you're interested in the regular advice and updates I give on either my blog or anything I've seen around employment law, HMRC, marketing, anything that I think is of particular interest to people like you, then I'm putting that out through social media. If you'd like to connect, that would be great. I'd love to hear from you.